I laid in bed, restless, my mind racing with the conversation from earlier that evening. Aaron's words echoed in my head. "Your family, Beth. Just let us build on Grandpa's land. We deserve it too." How could he say that? That land was sacred, meant for Grandpa's dream project, a community center where he could share his passion for woodworking with the neighborhood kids. It was his dying wish, and I intended to honor it. Aaron always had a way of making me feel guilty, like I owed him something. But this time it felt different, like he was taking advantage of our familial bond for his own selfish gain. I tossed and turned, replaying the scenario. What? That land was meant for Grandpa's dream project, I had protested, my voice trembling with disbelief. Aaron's words cut deep. "Come on, sis. We're not asking for much, just a small piece of that vast property. You know you can't handle all of it alone." Alone. The word stung. It had been 3 years since my husband passed, leaving me to manage Grandpa's carpentry business single-handedly. But I wasn't helpless, and I certainly didn't need Aaron's pity or his demands. Still, the nagging guilt persisted. Aaron was family, after all, and he had a point. The land was vast, and maintaining it was a constant struggle. Perhaps I could compromise, allocate a small portion for him to build on, while preserving the rest for Grandpa's vision. With a heavy sigh, I made my decision. I would hear Aaron out, but on my terms. Grandpa's dream would not be compromised, no matter what. A few days later, Aaron's wife, Ally, showed up at my doorstep, clutching a thick folder adorned with an architectural firm's logo. She barged in without so much as a greeting, her expression stern and unyielding. "Here are the blueprints," she announced, slamming the folder onto the kitchen table. "As you can see, we have everything planned out in meticulous detail." I opened the folder, my eyes widening at the elaborate designs. An entire mansion? But I thought we agreed on a modest house. Ally scoffed, her perfectly sculpted eyebrows arching in disdain. "Don't be ridiculous, Beth. We deserve a home that matches our status and success. This is non-negotiable." My throat tightened as I flipped through the pages, each one more extravagant than the last. Grand foyers, multiple wings, even a private theater. It was excessive, to say the least. "But what about Grandpa's dream project?" I protested weakly. "We can't just pave over the entire property for your palace." Ally's piercing gaze bore into me, her lips curling into a condescending smirk. "Oh, please, that silly little community center? It's time to let go of the past and embrace the future, Beth. Our future." Her words stung like a slap across the face. How dare she dismiss Grandpa's lifelong dream so callously? The very dream that had sustained his spirit through countless hardships. The dream he had entrusted to me on his deathbed. I opened my mouth to argue, but Ally held up a perfectly manicured hand, effectively silencing me. "Save your breath. This is happening, whether you like it or not. We'll be expecting the funds for construction within the month." With that, she turned on her heel and strode out, leaving me to stare helplessly at the blueprints that threatened to consume everything Grandpa had worked so hard for. My hands trembled with a mixture of rage and despair. How could they be so heartless, so utterly devoid of respect for the man who had taken me in and raised me as his own? Didn't our shared history mean anything to them? I slumped into a chair, the weight of their demands crushing me. It seemed that no matter how hard I fought, they would always find a way to strip me of my dignity, to trample over the legacy that meant everything to me. But as the initial shock subsided, a familiar fire began to burn within me, the same fire that had fueled Grandpa's determination in the face of adversity. I would not let them win, not without a fight. It was time to take a stand, to protect the dream that had shaped my very existence. With renewed resolve, I gathered the blueprints and began formulating a plan. If Aaron and Ally wanted a battle, they would get one, and this time I intended to emerge victorious, no matter the cost. The next morning I found myself at the hospital, visiting my ailing father John. As I approached his room, I overheard Ally's shrill voice echoing in the hallway. "It's just so awful, isn't it? But until he's gone, we can't get what's truly ours." My heart sank as the meaning of her words registered. She was talking about Dad's inheritance. My inheritance, the one tied to Grandpa's land and his dream project. I peered around the corner, and there she was, phone pressed to her ear, oblivious to my presence. Her face was twisted into an expression of pure disgust, as if the very thought of my father's existence repulsed her. I know, she continued, her voice dripping with impatience. But the sooner he kicks the bucket, the sooner we can finally live the life we deserve. No more scraping by, no more sacrifices. My hands balled into fists at my sides, nails digging into my palms. How could she be so callous, so utterly devoid of human decency? This was her own father-in-law she was talking about, a man who had welcomed her into our family with open arms. Bile rose in my throat as the full weight of her words hit me. She wasn't just after Grandpa's land, she was after everything, every last penny of our inheritance, and she was willing to wish death upon my father to get it. In that moment, something shifted within me. The anger, the resentment, the overwhelming sense of injustice, it all crystallized into a single, unwavering purpose. I would not stand idly by while these vultures picked our family legacy apart, piece by piece. Ally finally noticed me standing there, her eyes widening in surprise. Beth, I didn't see you there. Save it, I spat, my voice trembling with barely contained fury. I heard everything. Her face paled, but she quickly regained her composure, her lips curling into a sickly sweet smile. Oh, you know how it is with family matters. Things get said in the heat of the moment, but we don't really mean them. Don't insult my intelligence, I growled, taking a step towards her. I know exactly what you and Aaron are up to, and I won't let you get away with it. For a brief moment, her mask slipped, revealing the true ugliness beneath. Her eyes narrowed, her mouth twisting into a sneer. You can't stop us, Beth, she hissed. We're going to take what's rightfully ours, whether you like it or not, and there's nothing you can do about it. With that, she brushed past me, her shoulder colliding with mine in a deliberate show of dominance. But I barely registered the physical contact, my mind already whirring with determination. This was war, plain and simple, and as I stepped into my father's room, my resolve hardened. I would protect our family, our legacy at all costs, no matter what it took. A few days later, Aaron and allies showed up at my doorstep once again, this time with a smug look on their faces that immediately set me on edge. We've done the math, Aaron announced without preamble, and to cover the construction costs, we'll need you to fork over $150,000. I stared at him in disbelief, certain I had misheard. $150,000? For a single house? Allie rolled her eyes, as if I were a petulant child questioning the obvious. Don't be dense, Beth. This is a mansion we're talking about, not some run-of-the-mill hovel. The materials alone are going to cost an arm and a leg. My mind raced, trying to make sense of the outrageous figure. Even if I liquidated every asset and drained my savings, I'd barely scratch the surface of that amount. That's an unreasonable demand, I protested weakly, already sensing the futility of my words. Aaron's expression hardened, his eyes glinting with barely concealed contempt. Don't give us that crap, sis. We both know you've got Grandpa's inheritance money stashed away somewhere. You owe us at least that much for agreeing to this whole thing. Ally nodded vigorously, her perfectly coiffed hair bouncing with each emphatic bob of her head. Exactly. It's time to stop being so damn selfish and start sharing the wealth, Beth. We're family, after all. The word family felt like a slap in the face, twisted and perverted beyond recognition by their insatiable greed. How could they claim to care about familial bonds when they were so willing to trample over everything our grandfather had held dear? I need some time to think this over, I stammered, my mind reeling from their audacity. Aaron shrugged, already turning to leave. Fine, take your time, but we expect that money in full by the end of the month, no excuses. As they walked away, I couldn't help but feel like I was being backed into a corner, forced to choose between preserving my grandfather's legacy and appeasing the insatiable appetites of these two vultures. But deep down, I knew there had to be more to their story, some hidden agenda or ulterior motive driving their outrageous demands. They were playing a game, and I was determined to figure out the rules before it was too late. With trembling fingers, I transferred a lump sum of $20,000 into their account, a token gesture to buy myself some time. Then I made a call to an old friend of my grandfather's, a private investigator who owed him a favor. I need you to dig into Aaron and Ally's finances, I said, my voice steady and resolved. There's something they're not telling me, and I intend to find out what it is. This was just the beginning, I knew, but for the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope that I might be able to turn the tables and reclaim what was rightfully mine, and honor my grandfather's memory in the process. A week later, the private investigator I'd hired called me with some startling news about Aaron and Ally's finances. "Well, it's not looking good for them," he said without preamble. "Their business is deep in the red, and they've been defaulting on loan payments left and right." My heart sank as the pieces began to fall into place. "So that's why they were demanding so much money from me." "Exactly," he confirmed. "And get this, they recently booked an extravagant vacation to the Bahamas, blowing through what little savings they had left." White-hot fury coursed through my veins as the full extent of their betrayal became clear. They had no intention of using my inheritance to build their dream home. They were simply trying to dig themselves out of a financial hole of their own making, all while living it up on a lavish tropical getaway. Those lying, manipulative snakes. I seethed, my hands balling into fists. They were playing me this whole time, trying to bleed me dry for their own selfish gains. The investigator let out a low whistle. "You got that right. And from the looks of it, they were planning to skip town after draining your accounts, leaving you high and dry." A sudden thought occurred to me, and I felt a rush of determination unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. "Not if I have anything to say about it." Without another word, I hung up the phone and immediately called my old friend Ron, a seasoned lawyer who had worked closely with my grandfather over the years. "Ron, I need your help," I said, laying out the entire sordid tale of Aaron and Ally's deceit. "They've been trying to swindle me out of my inheritance, and I want to make sure they pay for what they've done." There was a brief pause on the other end of the line before Ron spoke, his voice laced with grim resolve. "Say no more, Beth. We're going to make sure those two get what's coming to them, and protect your grandfather's legacy in the process." Over the next few days, we worked tirelessly, poring over legal documents and crafting an ironclad plan. By the time Aaron and Ally returned from their ill-gotten vacation, everything was in place. Their smug grins quickly faded when they saw the construction crews hard at work on the property, but not on the palatial mansion they had envisioned. "What the hell is this?" Aaron demanded, his face flushing with rage as he stormed over to where I stood, arms crossed defiantly. "This is your dream home, brother dear," I replied, unable to keep the satisfaction from creeping into my voice. "A brand new community center, just like Grandpa always wanted." As realization dawned on their faces, I felt a sense of vindication wash over me. The tables had finally turned, and this time, I was the one holding all the cards. Aaron's face turned a deep shade of crimson as he lunged towards me, his hands balled into tight fists. "What the hell is this? This isn't what we agreed upon." I stood my ground, unflinching in the face of his rage. "On the contrary, brother dear, this is exactly what we agreed upon, or rather, what I agreed to." Ron stepped forward, brandishing a thick stack of documents. "The final signed contract is for the construction of a community center on this property. Beth owns the land outright, and she has every legal right to proceed with her grandfather's vision." Ally's shrill voice cut through the tension like a knife. "You can't do this. We had a deal." "A deal?" I scoffed, shaking my head in disbelief. "You mean the deal where you tried to swindle me out of my inheritance to fund your lavish lifestyle? The one where you wished for our own father's death just so you could get your grubby hands on his money?" Their faces drained of color as the truth hung in the air, laid bare for all to see. In that moment, they looked small, pathetic, the facade of their supposed success crumbling around them. "How did you—" Ally stammered, her voice trembling with fear. "I have my ways," I replied coolly, "and thanks to your little confession at the hospital, I have all the evidence I need to make sure you never see a single penny of our family's money." Aaron's eyes narrowed, his lips curling into a snarl. "You can't prove anything. It's your word against ours." With a flick of my wrist, I produced my phone and hit play, Ally's damning words filling the air like a noxious cloud. "It's awful, isn't it? But until he's gone, we can't get what's truly ours." Silence hung thick in the air as the recording ended, the weight of their betrayal crushing down upon them. Aaron's shoulders slumped in defeat, while Ally buried her face in her hands, her perfectly manicured nails doing little to hide her shame. "You're ruined," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Both of you. Your greed has cost you everything." As if on cue, a sleek black sedan pulled up, and two imposing figures emerged. Aaron's boss and a representative from the loan company they were in debt to. "Aaron Carter," the boss bellowed, his face twisted in disgust. "I've just been made aware of your extracurricular activities. Consider yourself fired, effective immediately." The loan representative stepped forward, brandishing a stack of papers. "And as for you, Mrs. Carter, we'll be initiating foreclosure proceedings on your home and assets to recoup the outstanding debts. You're both officially bankrupt." As they were led away, defeated and humiliated, I couldn't help but feel a sense of bittersweet triumph. They had brought this upon themselves, allowing their greed and selfishness to consume them until there was nothing left. And as for me, I had preserved my grandfather's legacy, ensuring that his dream would live on long after those who sought to destroy it were nothing but a distant memory. In the aftermath of Aaron and Ally's public humiliation, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. The storm had passed, and I had emerged victorious, but at what cost? As I sat alone in the silence of my grandfather's woodshop, running my fingers over the smooth, worn surface of his workbench, I couldn't help but wonder if he would have approved of the lengths I'd gone to protect his dream. A soft knock at the door pulled me from my reverie, and I turned to see Ron standing in the doorway, a somber expression on his face. "Beth," he said, stepping inside, "I know this hasn't been easy for you, but I think you did the right thing." I let out a weary sigh, my shoulders slumping under the weight of my conflicted emotions. Did I, though? I mean, I practically destroyed my own brother's life. What kind of person does that make me? Ron's brow furrowed as he considered my words. "A person who was willing to do whatever it took to preserve her family's legacy," he said finally. "Aaron and Ally brought this upon themselves with their greed and deceit. You simply leveled the playing field." His words rang true, but still, a part of me couldn't shake the nagging sense of guilt. These were people I had once loved and trusted, after all, family. As if sensing my inner turmoil, Ron reached into his briefcase and produced a small recording device. "I think you should hear this," he said, pressing play. Ally's voice filled the room, her tone dripping with disdain as she spat the words I had overheard at the hospital. "It's awful, isn't it? But until he's gone, we can't get what's truly ours." I flinched, the memory of those words still fresh and raw, like a jagged shard of glass piercing my heart. But then Ron rewound the tape and played it again, this time with the full context. "And that's why we need to sort out this mess with Beth before Dad passes away. It's awful, isn't it? But until he's gone, we can't get what's truly ours, a chance to make things right and honor Grandpa's legacy." My breath caught in my throat as the true meaning of her words sank in. They hadn't been wishing for our father's death at all. They had been lamenting the fact that they wouldn't be able to make amends until after he was gone. Tears stung my eyes as the weight of my mistake came crashing down upon me. I had let my anger and suspicion blind me to the truth, lashing out in a misguided quest for vengeance. "Oh, Ron," I whispered, my voice thick with remorse. "What have I done?" But even as the guilt threatened to consume me, a glimmer of hope shone through. Aaron and Ally's lives might have been shattered, but they were still alive, and there was still a chance, however slim, to make things right. With renewed determination, I turned to Ron, my jaw set in a firm line. "We need to find them," I said, my voice steady and resolute, "and we need to make this right, no matter what it takes." The road ahead would be long and arduous, but for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I had a sense of purpose, not just to preserve my grandfather's legacy, but to heal the deep wounds I had inflicted upon my own family. It was time to find redemption, one painful step at a time. It took months of searching, but eventually, Ron and I managed to track down Aaron and Ally. They had hit rock bottom, living out of a dilapidated motel, scraping by on menial jobs just to put food on the table. When I first laid eyes on them, huddled together in that dingy room, it was as if the weight of the world had come crashing down upon their shoulders. Aaron, once so full of swagger and bravado, now looked small and defeated, his eyes hollow and haunted. and ally, who had always carried herself with such poise and confidence, was a mere shadow of her former self, her once immaculate appearance now disheveled and unkempt. For a moment I wavered, the old anger and resentment threatening to resurface, but then I remembered my purpose, redemption, healing, and the chance to make things right. "Aaron, ally," I said, my voice steady despite the tumult of emotions raging within me. "We need to talk." They regarded me warily like cornered animals, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt at the fear and distrust etched onto their faces. "What do you want from us?" Aaron spat, his voice tinged with bitterness. "Haven't you taken enough?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I knew would be a difficult conversation. "I want to apologize," I said, the words feeling foreign on my tongue. "I made a terrible mistake, and in my quest for vengeance I let my anger blind me to the truth." Ally's brow furrowed, confusion and skepticism warring across her features. "What are you talking about?" Slowly, I recounted the events that had led me down this path, the misinterpreted conversation, the assumption of their ill intent, and the devastating consequences that followed. As I spoke, their expressions shifted from guarded to stunned, the realization of my mistake dawning on them like a cruel twist of fate. "Beth," Aaron breathed, his voice barely above a whisper, "we never meant for any of this to happen." Tears stung my eyes as I nodded, the weight of my guilt threatening to crush me. "I know," I said, my voice thick with emotion, "and I am so sorry." In that moment something shifted between us. A wall built upon years of resentment and mistrust began to crumble. Ally reached out, her hand trembling, and took mine in a gesture of tentative forgiveness. "We were all blinded by our own desires," she said, her voice tinged with regret, "but that doesn't excuse what we put you through." And just like that, the floodgates opened, and we poured out our hearts to one another, laying bare the pain and misunderstandings that had festered for far too long. It was a cathartic release, a cleansing of the soul that left us all drained but oddly at peace. As the sun began to set outside the grimy motel window, casting long shadows across the room, I knew that our journey was far from over. There would be more challenges to face, more wounds to heal, and more bridges to mend. But in that moment, surrounded by the love and forgiveness of my family, I felt a sense of contentment that I hadn't experienced in years. Grandpa's dream had been realized, his legacy preserved, and now with Aaron and Ally by my side, the future looked brighter than ever. "We're going to get through this," I said, my voice ringing with conviction. "Together." And as we embraced, a newfound bond forged in the fires of our shared tribulations, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them as a united front, a family, whole and unbroken, standing tall in the face of adversity. For in that moment, I had found something far more precious than any inheritance or material possession, the true meaning of redemption and the unshakable power of love to heal even the deepest of wounds.